In this lesson, we'll be learning about how to search and retrieve data from a MongoDB database using various query methods. First, we'll start by introducing the basics of querying documents in MongoDB. This will include the syntax for performing basic queries. Next, we'll move on to more advanced query methods, such as using logical operators and comparison operators to search for specific data. Throughout the lesson, we'll be working with the sample dataset on Atlas to help you understand how to apply these query techniques in a practical setting. Let's get started. How do we write a query to search all documents in a collection? To select all documents in a collection, pass an empty document as a query filter parameter to the query bar. Let's see that in action. In this filter box, if I pass an empty document and click enter, it's going to retrieve all the documents for me. You can see several documents listed. There's no filter applied, so it just returns all the documents. This operation corresponds to the following SQL statements. Select star from listing and reviews. Specifying equality conditions in our filters. To specify equality conditions, use the field column value expressions in the query filter document. For example, if we want to query our listings and reviews for documents that have a minimum night of 2, we can use this as the filter. In my filter, I can use minimum nights 2. Right, you can see that the documents returned would always have minimum nights of 2. This operation corresponds to the following SQL statements. Select star from listen and reviews where minimum nights is equal to 2. Specifying conditions using query operators. A query filter document can use the query operators to specify conditions in the following form: field 1, operator 1, and the value. For example, if I want to filter the listen and reviews collections where the cancellation policy is either moderate or flexible, here's how I would go about that. Cancellation policy, and we use the operator in. Just passing a list, moderate, flexible. The documents returned would either have cancellation policy of moderate or flexible. You can see the first one returned has a cancellation policy of moderate, second one returned has a cancellation policy of the second one returned has a cancellation policy of flexible, and on and on. The operation corresponds to the following SQL statements. Select star from listen and reviews where cancellation policy in moderate, flexible. Here's a list of other comparison operators in MongoDB. Specifying AND conditions. A compound query can specify conditions for more than one field in the collections document. Implicitly, a logical AND conjunction connects the clauses of a compound query so that the query selects the documents in the collection and matches all the conditions. The following example retrieves all documents in the listen and reviews collections where minimum nights is 2 and accommodates more than 5 guests. Let's see that in practice. To do this, we can have the first condition, minimum nights 2 accommodates. We use a comparison operator here, should greater than 5. Accommodates. Alright. The documents returned are going to have minimum nights of 2 and should accommodate more than 5 guests. So we can just take a look at an example. This has minimum nights of 2 and accommodates 8 guests. The second one has minimum nights of 2 and accommodates 6 guests. This operation corresponds to the following SQL statements. Select star from listener reviews where minimum nights is equal to 2 and accommodates is greater than 5. Specify all conditions. Using the $or operator, you can specify a compound query that joins each clause with a logical OR conjunction so that the query selects the documents in the collection that match at least one condition. The following example retrieves all documents in the collection where cancellation policy is moderate or minimum nights is 1. To write this query, you can start using the $or, add a list of conditions. The first is the cancellation policy. Moderate or minimum nights. Minimum nights is 2. Minimum nights is 1, sorry. The documents we returned would either have a cancellation policy of moderate or minimum nights 1. Let's take a look at some examples. This has minimum nights of 2, but the cancellation policy is moderate. That shows that it's an OR conjunction. This has minimum nights of 1 and the cancellation policy is flexible. Alright, so it will return documents which either have cancellation policy of moderate or minimum nights is 1. This operation corresponds to the following SQL statements. Select star from listener reviews where cancellation policy is equal to moderate or minimum nights is equal to 1. Projections in MongoDB. In this lesson, we'll be discussing what projections are, why they are important, and how to use them in your MongoDB queries. First, let's talk about what projections are. Simply put, projections allow you to specify which fields you want to include or exclude in the results of your query. This can be useful for a number of reasons, including improving performance of your queries and reducing the amount of data that needs to be transferred over the network. So, why are projections important? Well, by including fields you need, you make your queries more efficient and improve the overall performance of your MongoDB database. Additionally, by excluding unnecessary fields, you can reduce the amount of data that needs to be transferred over the network, which can be especially useful when working with large datasets. Let's talk about the usage. Return all fields in matching documents. If you do not specify a projection document, MongoDB returns all fields. In the previous query lessons, no projection document was used, so all fields were returned. Return the specified fields and the ID field only. A projection can explicitly include several fields by setting the field to 1 in the projection document. For example, using this as the projection document selects these 3 fields and the ID field: listing URL, room type, and last script. Let me demonstrate that. We set our filter to empty to return all documents without any filtering. And if you click the options button, you can set your projection documents here. Now, setting this projection document, I can add listing URL 1, room type 1, last script 1. Now let's apply this projection document and see the results. Applying this projection document, we see that the ID field is returned, listing URL, room type, and last script, and other fields are excluded. If you'd like to suppress the ID field, that's possible. You can remove the ID field from the result by setting it to 0 in the projection, as in the following example. I I'm going to build up on the previous example and set the ID field to 0, and we won't retrieve the ID field in the query results. As you can see, only listen URL, room type, and last script were returned. Return all but the excluded fields. Instead of listing the fields you want to return in the matching documents, you can use a projection to exclude specific fields. The following example returns all fields except for the listen URL, room type, and the last script fields in the matching documents. What I can do is set these to 0, 0, 0, 0. And in our results, we are going to select all other fields except these ones. You can see the ID field isn't returned, last script won't be returned, room type and listen URL won't be returned. We can go through it. That's about it for projections. Indexes. Indexes support the efficient execution of queries in MongoDB. Without indexes, MongoDB must perform a collection scan. That is, scan every document in the collection to select those documents that match the query statements. If an appropriate index exists for a query, MongoDB can use the index to limit the number of documents it must inspect. Fundamentally, indexes in MongoDB are similar to indexes in other database systems. MongoDB defines indexes at the collection level and supports indexes on any field or subfield of the documents in a MongoDB collection. Creating an index. Let's navigate to creating an index in Atlas. In our collections view, we are currently in the find view where we were testing out different types of filters and projections. To create an index, we go to the index tab. These are the predefined indexes already created by the sample datasets. To add a new index, I would click Create Index. You can see Atlas has a template already for you to create the index, so you decide what field you want to create the index on. Let's create an index on the property type field. Indexes store references to fields in either ascending, represented by 1, or descending, represented by -1 sort order. For single field indexes, the sort order keys doesn't matter because MongoDB can traverse the index in either direction. However, for compound indexes, the sort order can matter in determining whether the index can support a sort operation. I use 1 to specify in ascending order. So I go ahead and click Review and create the index. Now we have created the property type index on the Listen and Reviews collection. By creating indexes on the fields that you want to query frequently, you can improve the performance of your queries and make your MongoDB database more efficient. Overall, indexing is a critical part of using MongoDB and can greatly improve the performance and efficiency of your database.